So I just finished up SEAL Team. To be quite honest with you, I'd be lying if I told you that I didn't have some sort of tears in my eyes, or if I wasn't holding back some tears in my eyes. It was powerful, great. And thinking back at what I said about SEAL Team, before I had really invested in it, after I had watched 6, I had some comments about SEAL Team, as a lot of you guys already know, and probably what brought you to the channel. But I definitely regret saying the things that I said, only because I guess I wasn't fully involved with the show and I didn't understand it. And I would say that it's definitely one of the best military shows that I've ever watched. I have immersed myself into the military drama. I've seen interviews with Tyler Gray, who talked about his experiences on the show and the things that he did. And I've really just been enjoying my time watching and diving into the world of special force operators. And a lot of the military men and women that have commented on my videos that I've made regarding the show, have mentioned about some of the things that the series gets right, and, kind of capturing the realism the best that they can, right? It's still a TV show, it's still drama, and so they do the best that they can. Tyler Gray has spoken about it as well. And so to open the door for us audiences, the civilians, and to be able to experience some of that and see what kind of goes on behind the scenes a little bit, it's really, really cool and entertaining. Honestly, I did not expect to like the show as much as I did. I didn't expect to feel for the characters as much as I did. Some of the first things that I said about the show was that I couldn't stand David Barraz as Master Chief Hayes. Sonny was, okay, but he kind of got on my nerves a bit. Those first few episodes, Clay just kind of seemed, I don't know if it was something just didn't click with me and him right off the bat. I even had comments on Lisa Davis and things like that, but to see the show grow and each of these characters grow and expand, and I'm really happy with what I experienced with the show. Now, if we're talking specifically about season 7, we're going to go into spoiler territory. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I saw and witnessed, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about it, right? Some of the critiques or whatever I have 100% from a civilian point of view. So if there's things that I missed or things that I didn't understand, please let me know down in the comments. But the season started off a bit slow compared to other seasons, right? It was the final season and we were just reeling from the death of Clay. There was going to be a lot of changes. And so we knew that this season was going to be different, feel different. And I believe that it had been 2 years since the previous season, which was season 6. So there had been some big downtime in between. And I think the reason that the show was a bit slower in the first, I would say 5 episodes, first 4 episodes, is because the team was still reeling from the events that occurred in the finale of season 6. The team wasn't active, they weren't on duty, they were basically on a leash for the stunt that Hayes pulled. They weren't seeing any action, and if we as the fans don't see any action, then maybe sometimes it can feel a little bit slower. And in those first 4 episodes, a lot of the fans, a lot of the comments that I was seeing from fans was that SEAL Team season 7 felt bad. Some people were saying that they were happy that the show was ending after its 7th season because it just lost what made it special. Some people were complaining about the tactics not being as good as the earlier seasons. Some people were complaining about Clay being gone. Some people were complaining about the new character that was brought in. And so there was a lot of that going around in the first few episodes. I haven't seen too much over the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 episodes. As I watched those all today, I binged them. And I thought that the season improved tremendously from the half point forward. I think that yes, it was a little bit difficult to get into the new characters. It was a bit difficult to kind of figure out the structure, right? What was going on with Drew? What was going on with his family? What was going on with that reporter? A lot of that stuff was kind of left open-ended. His character seemed extremely cocky, seemed like the walk that he was doing, the voice he was doing, the faces he was making, it didn't seem fully believable. Now, would I know what fully believable is? No, of course not. But just from the eye test, it just didn't seem fully believable. And, Clay seemed more believable than him. Hayes, Ray, all those people seemed more believable than him. This one seemed like he was acting like a tough guy. It was almost a little cringy seeing how he was acting. And I was a little bit worried, I think, like a lot of you guys were, like, what the hell is his problem? What's going on with him? Why is he acting that way? He's kind of bringing the show down a little bit for me. He's not clicking with the team. There's no chemistry. He's like just quiet all the time, so stoic. It's not doing anything for his character. So I was kind of struggling to really like him in any type of way. And then I also had a weird feeling with Jason Hayes. He wasn't the guy that we've known for the first 6 seasons. He was like watered down. He was like kind of hiding in his shell, kind of doubting himself, overthinking his decisions, maybe not knowing when to make the right decision. He was struggling with a lot of self-doubt. He was struggling with a lot of guilt. He was struggling with atonement. He was struggling with all the kills that he's made over his 20+ year career, all the blood that's been on his hands. And that was a big point in the season. And we've never really seen him this vulnerable, this calm, this okay with everything, kind of just letting things go. And one of the complaints that I had about Jason in some of my earlier videos was just how much of a hard ass he was, and how he seemed maybe too into himself at times, how it seemed like he didn't really care too much about his team, didn't care too much about his 2IC and Ray Perry, and the way that he treated them sometimes, it seemed shitty from like a layman's point of view. But over time I got used to him being that way. Over time I kind of, I rolled my eyes at times. I was like, man, this guy. But I got used to who he was as a character, who he was as a person, and the decisions that he made, and how fucking like cold he could be sometimes. So I got used to that. So seeing him in a watered down way, or a watered down version of himself, just seemed so odd to me. And seeing how Drew would talk over him, seeing how, maybe the team was fighting and he wasn't doing anything, was just kind of letting it go. I couldn't believe it. To be quite honest with you, the way that Drew was treating him and the way that Jason was treating Drew those first 4 episodes just seemed so wrong to me, because I'm thinking like Jason Hayes, like season 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or even season 1, wouldn't take that shit from Drew. He would have checked him, or he would have figured something out. It just seemed completely odd. And the team was noticing this. Drew kept telling him, well, this isn't the legendary Bravo 1 that we would hear about. I thought that Jason was never going to revert back to his old ways. But I want to highlight episode 5 here, because there was a fight that the group got into, and here is where Drew reveals that he was part of Echo Team, the team led by Steve Porter. Echo Team was blown up in a trap, and that was a very serious thing, and like a whole season was almost dedicated to that particular event and avenging Steve Porter and Echo Team. But it was revealed that he was supposed to be there the day that they died and went into that trap, but he wasn't, because he got in trouble and command sent him home. And to me, I mean, that was crazy, right? It connected him to the past, and it added so much to his character that from that point forward, he opened up, and it was a completely different guy. He became more believable. He became more open. He became a team guy. He became a part of the brotherhood. And it was really, really cool to see that growth in such a short amount of time for Drew. And I actually really enjoyed his character a lot after that. I believe that fight was also very intense, but it was a turning point in the season, I believe, because from that point forward, it just kind of picked up and it was fast paced. We won't go into all the details because you've already probably know, but at some point, Mikey ODs Hayes' son, and in episode 7, like out of nowhere, Hayes turns right back into the old Bravo 1. It was like a switch clicked in his head. He was cursing up a storm. He was locked in. He was back in his 3-foot world. He was talking shit to Drew. He was talking shit to Ray. He was talking shit to Sonny. He was calling Omar a bitch. He was, it was just old school Bravo 1 shit, to be honest. And as much as I hated Jason Hayes acting that way, in the earlier seasons, and even in this season, it kind of made me roll my eyes a bit. It was like a superhero kind of just coming back. It was like one of those moments where it's like, okay, Jason Hayes is back. That motherfucker's back, and he doesn't care anymore. It was cool to see. It feels like it was almost his prime, engaging with the new group of guys like Omar and Drew, and just handling shit again. I thought that was really, really cool, and I enjoyed that. The guy that was also responsible for Clay's death, in a way, Ben, he was a focal part of the season as well. Sonny forgave him, and he tried to integrate him back into Spencer House, the home for veterans that need help, that was started by Ray and Naima, but Ray kind of exploded in his face, and that was also another big plot point. Sonny was trying to forgive and move on. Ray was filled with guilt about the death of Clay, as if it was his fault because he opened Spencer House, and Hayes was just filled with all this remorse, with all this guilt, and he was just trying to battle it the best way that he knew how. We also went into a moment there in episode 8 where Ray and the whole team basically get into a fight once more. And instead of reverting back to the old, hey, fuck you, I'm leaving and we're not going to talk, or we're going to hold this against each other for the whole season, the matter was resolved quick. Ray and Hayes talked about it, apologized to each other, and they moved on. And there was a lot of growth even in that friendship, in that brotherhood. And I love to see that. Ray is and has been my favorite character this whole season. Not this whole season, but this whole series. And it was just really cool to see them on the same page, That was another thing that I really, really enjoyed about the season, was that Ray and Hayes were like 1 and 2, man. Like, it just felt like 1 and 2. It felt like a goodbye for both of them, and it felt like they were doing their best to work together and work the problems, and I really enjoyed seeing that. It was awesome. And I guess to bring this to a conclusion, really, I want to talk about my final points here, because if not, I'm gonna just go on a tangent and I'll just keep on talking. But, Hayes atoned for some of the sins of his past. Towards the end there, he finally did, at least in his head, he took the first step to atonement, because, like we talked about, the themes of this season, you know, could be guilt, could be shame, could be atonement, could be all the, you know, realizing all the stuff that you did. And so, you know, Hayes just had a lot of blood on his hands, and he started by going to meet with the woman that was the wife of his first kill, you know, over 20 years ago. And he met with her, he apologized to her, and it was a positive meeting, and he felt atoned. He felt like it helped him a little bit. So he was able to move on. He was able to put some stuff behind him and concentrate on what was ahead. And really, after all of this happened, we kind of start to just wrap it up. You know, we start closing up some storylines, and we start trying to see into the future, right? There's some doubt there about Ray really retiring. We talk a lot about Jason Hayes and his 20 plus years as a SEAL, but we never really talk too much about Ray. Ray has been in it over 20 years as well. I think he had just hit his 20-year mark. So he had been warfighting for a long time. He's super experienced, and he's dealing with a lot of stuff. So the transition isn't easy for him either, right? He has a different way of handling it than Jason, and I think that's very realistic. But Ray was struggling to quit there towards the end because he can still go after it. He still, I think, enjoyed it. He still kind of sometimes opted to live in that 3-foot world when he was downrange. So it seemed like it was a difficult thing for him as well. And there's one final mission called up that kind of comes unexpectedly in the middle of the episode, of the final episode. And, you know, Jason is the first one on board, but then he sees Ray again. And he tells Ray, like, man, come on, like, why are you coming? You're about to retire in 5 days. But, you know, Ray wanted to do it. He wanted to go for it. And I was really glad to see him in there because that's my guy. There was also a part there in the show and you think that Jason Hayes died. And I did think he had died. I thought they were all attending his funeral, but it was actually a wedding. It was for his daughter. You know, it was the final season of SEAL Team. It's dramatic. They're dealing with real life shit and real life issues. And they've tackled so many of the issues that a lot of servicemen go through, according to you guys in the comments. So they've done a pretty good job with attacking a lot of that stuff from the mental side, from some of the tactics, from all that stuff. So I just thought, you know, realistically, how many missions can they go on without Hayes getting actually killed or something like that? So I thought, and I think a lot of fans thought, that there was going to be a major death in the series. I honestly thought maybe Ray was going to get killed in one of those final missions. I thought maybe Hayes was going to get killed, but they didn't get killed. Nobody died. Nobody died. It didn't get that dark or that dramatic. I thought it was an interesting choice because I really believe someone was going to go down. They chose to end it on a happier note, and the final title for the episode, that is SEAL Team, was Does War Have the Last Word? That was just, I think, the overall theme of the entire season and the real point of it, right? The final episode ends with Ray retiring, and it was hinted at, and I believe that Hayes also retired. But in the end, we realized that Hayes did not retire. He gave up the position offered to him as the primary officer for Warfighter Health, which is a new program that they're integrating for Warfighter Health. And Ray took that job instead of Hayes, and Sonny gave up his trident so that Lisa wouldn't get in trouble over the Decker issue, and he moved with her to Washington. And so Sonny left the team, Ray left the team, and Hayes stayed on with a new group of guys, of course with Omar and Drew, Trent and Brock, and, you know, maybe another 2 new guys that they brought in. It was a powerful ending. It was a powerful message, and I think overall I was very happy with the way that it ended. Clay Spencer loomed over the series the entire time and pushed Sonny even without him being present. You know, Stella tells him about the last conversation that he had with her, where he told her that he had already lived his dream and now it was time for her to live her dream. And Sonny, that resonated with Sonny. Honestly, it made me almost tear up. And then Sonny goes and he tells Lisa the same thing. You know, I've lived my dream and now it's time for you to live yours. And so he supported her, and he went to go do what Clay wanted to do with Stella. And I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful message. And again, Clay, although he was missed in person, he was there like in almost every single episode. He was mentioned even a little bit. He was never truly gone, right? He was a part of this season a lot. But I know that some fans, you know, were angry that he couldn't come back for a flashback scene, for a dream sequence, for something. And I agree, it would have been cool to see. It would have been nice to have, but it just didn't happen. Overall, I think it was an extremely good show. And overall, I think that this season was pretty damn good, all things considering. The last and final thing that I'll talk about here for now is the disappointment that I had in the season. I really thought that Brock and Trent were going to get a little bit more screen time, but they didn't. You know, they didn't even get any lines there towards the end. And I think it sucks tremendously because Brock in particular is one that never left the team. He was there from season 1, episode 1, all the way to the final season and the final episode. And I get that he's not an actor, but in season 6, there were more lines that Trent and Brock had together. And I thought that it was cool to see them kind of more involved. But then in season 7, they just were not completely completely ignored, but they rarely ever spoke again. It was like season 1. It felt like they regressed, and honestly, that sucked big time because I was expecting more lines from both of them. I really enjoyed Trent and Brock as characters. Brock was one of my favorites. I know he didn't talk, he didn't do much, but he really was one of my favorite characters in the show. Obviously, Trent is a badass, so I would have liked to see a little bit more. And then finally, I think that in the bar that they're always in, you know, they have the remembrance wall. It would have been kind of cool to show all of the fallen, like Clay, like Sweeney, like Clay's mentor, you know, Full Metal. It would have been cool to kind of see like a little shot and then maybe transition to Hayes on the new team. You know, the show ends with the final words being from Jason Hayes saying, "Easy fucking day." Again, I'm gonna leave it here because honestly, this video is already long enough. Let me know what you felt about SEAL Team and your thoughts on the final season, which I actually don't think was meant to be the final season, but I think the showrunners and the producers were told this is it, and so they had to wrap it up.